The invasion begins. The year was 2247. Earth stood as a united world for the first time in its turbulent history. After centuries of war, poverty, and division, humanity had finally achieved peace. Yet their technological advances still lagged behind the great civilizations of the galaxy. Many believed Earth was too small and insignificant to attract attention. They were wrong. Far beyond the reach of human sensors, the Galactic Empire had been watching. The Galactic were an ancient and powerful race, ruling over dozens of star systems with an iron grip. To them, Earth was nothing more than a minor obstacle, a planet with primitive technology and naive creatures who didn't know their place in the galaxy. On a quiet evening, when most people on Earth were enjoying the peace they had worked so hard to build, the Galactic fleet entered the solar system. Hundreds of sleek, black ships appeared out of nowhere, their engines humming with power far beyond anything humans had ever seen. On board the flagship, the Galactic commander, Velrek, gazed at the blue planet on the main screen. His sharp, metallic voice broke the silence of the bridge. "This is Earth," he said with disdain. "They call themselves intelligent, yet their defenses are laughable. This will be over before breakfast." His officers chuckled in agreement. Meanwhile, in Earth's orbit, the human fleet scrambled to respond. The Earth Defense Command, or EDC, had known about alien life for decades, but had hoped it would never come to this. Their ships, while sturdy, looked almost primitive compared to the sleek designs of the Galactic. Captain Lena Grayson, one of EDC's most decorated officers, stood on the bridge of the ESV Resolute, a battleship that had seen better days. The crew was tense as alarms blared and red lights flashed. "What are we dealing with?" Lena asked, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Parker, studied the incoming data. His face paled as he read the numbers. "Over 300 ships, Captain. Their technology. It's beyond anything we've ever seen." Lena took a deep breath, her mind racing. She knew Earth couldn't outgun these invaders. But they had something that Galactic didn't: ingenuity. "Send a message to all ships," she said. "We're not running. We'll fight. Tell them to follow my lead." The human fleet moved into formation, a ragtag collection of cruisers, frigates, and carriers. To the Galactic, it was like watching a group of ants trying to stop a storm. Commander Velrek sneered as he ordered the attack. "Destroy them," he said simply. The Galactic ships surged forward, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space. Beams of energy tore through the void, aiming straight for the human fleet. The first human ship exploded almost instantly, its debris scattering like dust. But then, something unexpected happened. The remaining human ships moved with precision, dodging attacks and countering with their own. While the Galactic relied on overwhelming power, the humans relied on tactics. Small groups of ships darted in and out, targeting weak points in the Galactic's armor. On board the Resolute, Lena barked orders. "Focus on their smaller ships. Break their formation." The crew worked like a well-oiled machine, their fear replaced by determination. One by one, the smaller Galactic ships began to fall. The Galactic, who had expected an easy victory, were caught off guard. Commander Velrek slammed his fist onto the armrest of his chair. "What is this? They're not supposed to fight back." His officers scrambled to adjust their tactics, but it was too late. The humans had already turned the tide of the first skirmish. Back on Earth, millions watched the battle unfold on their screens. The sight of their outmatched fleet holding its own against an alien invader sparked both fear and hope. As the dust settled after the first engagement, the Galactic fleet regrouped. Velrek's eyes burned with fury as he stared at the screen. "These humans are more troublesome than I thought," he muttered. "But no matter. They will bow before us, or they will burn." On the Resolute, Lena allowed herself a brief smile. "We may be outnumbered," she said quietly, "but we're not outsmarted. Let's show them what humans are made of." The battle for Earth had only just begun. Secrets of Earth's strategy. The vastness of space was silent once more, but the tension within the human fleet could have filled the void. The first skirmish had bought them time, but time was a luxury Captain Lena Grayson knew they couldn't afford. Inside the ESV Resolute, the bridge was alive with activity. Officers and technicians worked tirelessly, scanning data, analyzing enemy patterns, and patching up systems damaged in the battle. Yet beneath the hustle, an unspoken question loomed. How long can we keep this up? Status report, Lena ordered, her voice cutting through the chatter. Lieutenant Parker approached, holding a tablet filled with grim statistics. 3 ships lost, 5 heavily damaged. Ammo reserves are down by 30%. We can hold for 1 more battle. Maybe 2, if we're careful. Lena frowned but nodded. We don't need to win every battle. We just need to survive long enough to win the war. She turned to the holographic map hovering above the command table. It displayed the solar system, Earth at the center like a fragile jewel surrounded by red markers. Cyllarn ships, hundreds of them. But the map also showed something else. A series of hidden routes, decoy markers, and shaded zones, labeled EMP pockets. Lena's eyes lingered on these details. They weren't just tactical plans. They were part of something much bigger, far from human eyes. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in a secret base buried miles below the Rocky Mountains, a group of engineers and scientists worked tirelessly. This wasn't just any facility. This was Project Black Veil, a classified initiative known only to a handful of leaders. Dr. Evelyn Drake, the lead scientist, adjusted her glasses and stared at the giant screen in front of her. It displayed real-time feeds from the battle. They performed better than expected, she muttered, her voice tinged with both pride and worry. Beside her, Commander Marcus Kane, a grizzled military strategist, crossed his arms. But not good enough to last. They're outgunned and outnumbered. We need to activate Phase 2. Dr. Drake hesitated. If we deploy it too soon, we risk exposing everything. The Cyllarn can't know how much we've learned about them. Marcus leaned closer. If we wait too long, there won't be a fleet left to save. Earth's survival depends on this. A dangerous maneuver. Back on the Resolute, Lena was already putting a risky plan into motion. Move the fleet into Sector Theta 9, she ordered. Parker blinked in surprise. Theta 9. That's dangerously close to the asteroid belt. Our ship's cold. Exactly, Lena interrupted. The Cyllarn rely on their advanced systems to navigate. We'll use the environment to our advantage. Our ships are clunkier, but they're also tougher. If we lure them in, they'll struggle to adapt. The crew exchanged uneasy glances but obeyed. They trusted Lena's instincts, even when her strategies seemed reckless. Minutes later, the human fleet disappeared into the asteroid field. The Cyllarn, eager to crush their resistance, followed without hesitation. Inside the Cyllarn flagship, Commander Velric smirked. Foolish humans, he said. They think they can hide among rocks. Increase pursuit speed. I want them crushed before they reach the inner planets. But as the Cyllarn ships entered the asteroid field, something strange happened. Their sleek, advanced systems, designed for open space battles, struggled to account for the chaotic environment. Human ships, on the other hand, navigated with surprising ease. Their old-fashioned thrusters and manual piloting systems proved to be an unexpected advantage. The unveiling of human ingenuity. Suddenly, small clusters of mines, disguised as harmless debris, detonated among the Cyllarn fleet. The explosions weren't powerful enough to destroy their ships but disrupted their systems, forcing them into defensive formations. This is not random, Velric growled, slamming his metallic fist onto the armrest of his chair. They've planned this. On the Resolute, Lena watched the chaos unfold with grim satisfaction. Activate the drones, she said. From hidden compartments on the human ships, dozens of small, AI-controlled drones launched into the fray. These weren't typical weapons of war. They were designed to confuse, distract, and exploit weaknesses. The drones darted around the Xylarn ships, targeting exposed communication relays and propulsion systems. Each movement was unpredictable, as if the drones were alive and thinking for themselves. "What are those things?" one Xylarn officer shouted. "They're disrupting our targeting systems." Velric's confidence faltered for the first time. This wasn't the mindless resistance he had expected. The humans were fighting with a precision and cunning that made them far more dangerous than he had anticipated. A new threat emerges. As the Xylarn struggled to adapt, a small team of human engineers on a stealth shuttle slipped behind enemy lines. Their mission: to hack into a Xylarn battleship and gather critical intel. Inside the alien vessel, the team discovered something terrifying: a data file containing plans for Earth's annihilation. But there was more. The Xylarn weren't acting alone. A shadowy figure appeared in intercepted communications, hinting at an even greater force pulling the strings. The lead engineer transmitted the data back to Earth before whispering, "Captain Grayson needs to see this." A new hope and greater danger. Back on the Resolute, Lena received the transmission. As she reviewed the data, her expression darkened. "This changes everything," she murmured. "They're not just here to conquer us. They want to erase us." Turning to her crew, Lena spoke with renewed determination. "We may be outmatched, but we're not outwitted. Prepare for the next phase. If they think we're just fighting for survival, they've underestimated us again." As the Xylarn regrouped, Earth's fleet prepared for its boldest move yet, armed with secrets that could change the tide of the war or doom humanity altogether. The counteroffensive. The asteroid belt was a graveyard of silence now. Broken Xylarn ships floated aimlessly, their once pristine hulls scarred and twisted. But Captain Lena Grayson didn't allow herself to savor the small victory. For every Xylarn ship destroyed, there were 10 more waiting beyond the battlefield. In the war room of the ESV Resolute, a three-dimensional hologram displayed the shifting positions of both fleets. The Xylarn ships had regrouped, forming a dense, impenetrable wall that stretched across space. The humans, fewer in number and scattered, looked like minnows surrounded by sharks. "They've learned from their mistakes," said Lieutenant Parker, pointing to the enemy formation. "They won't chase us into another trap." Lena leaned against the table, studying the map with narrowed eyes. She didn't reply immediately. Her mind churned through possibilities, discarding one plan after another. "Let them think we're out of options," she said finally. "We'll strike where they least expect it." Her word hung in the air, a challenge to her crew as much as the enemy. The Shadow Fleet. Unbeknownst to the Xylarn, Earth's fleet wasn't as scattered as it seemed. Lena had ordered her ships to disperse, not in retreat, but as part of a calculated ploy. Hidden within the asteroid belt, cloaked by stealth technology and radiation interference, lay a second wave of human vessels, small, agile, and brimming with experimental tech. These weren't warships in the traditional sense. They were interceptors, designed for surgical strikes. Each one carried a payload capable of disabling Xylarn systems rather than outright destroying their ships. On board one of these interceptors, Commander Raj Patel monitored his team's preparations. "Remember," he said, addressing his pilots, "we're not here to fight fair. We're here to make them bleed." His words were met with grim nods. Each pilot knew the risks. If their stealth failed, the Xylarn would tear them apart before they could even fire a shot. The plan in motion. Lena's voice crackled over the comms, steady and commanding. "Phase 1 begins now. Draw their attention." On cue, the larger human ships emerged from their hiding spots, firing precise volleys at the Xylarn fleet. The shots didn't do much damage, but they served their purpose: bait. The Xylarn, true to form, responded with overwhelming force. Their massive weapons lit up the void, chasing the human ships as they darted away like fireflies. Meanwhile, the interceptors moved into position. Using the chaos as cover, they slipped behind the enemy lines, undetected. "Phase 2, Lena ordered. The The first wave of interceptors struck. Their payloads, electromagnetic disruptors, were launched with pinpoint accuracy, attaching themselves to the Xylarn ships. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the targeted ships flickered with sparks. Their lights dimmed, their engines stuttered, and their weapons fell silent. On the Xylarn flagship, Commander Velric watched in disbelief. "What is happening?" he roared. An officer frantically worked at his console. "They've disabled our power cores. Our systems are shutting down." Velric's fury was palpable. He slammed his fist against the console, denting the metal. "Activate the backup systems. Now." But the backups didn't respond. A desperate gamble. The humans didn't stop there. As the Xylarn ships struggled to recover, the second wave of interceptors moved in. This time, their payloads were something new: nanite swarms. These microscopic machines infiltrated the Xylarn ships, corrupting their systems from the inside. Weapons misfired, shields dropped, and even basic navigation became erratic. On board the Resolute, Lena watched the holographic map as more and more enemy ships were neutralized. For the first time, the battlefield seemed to tilt in their favor. "Send the message," she said. Across all frequencies, a single broadcast was transmitted to the Xylarn fleet. "This is Captain Lena Grayson of the Earth Defense Command. You invaded our home, thinking we were weak. But we are not afraid of you. Leave now, and you may live to tell the story of how humans outsmarted the Xylarn Empire." The message was as much psychological as tactical. Lena knew the Xylarn weren't used to facing resistance, let alone losing. The seed of doubt was planted. The Xylarn's countermove. But Velric was not so easily intimidated. His pride burned hotter than any star, and he wasn't about to retreat. "Humans think they're clever," he sneered. "But cleverness can't save them from annihilation." He issued a new order: deploy the Warbringers. Moments later, the battlefield shifted again. Massive Xylarn dreadnoughts, hidden until now, emerged from hyperspace. These ships were monsters, bristling with firepower and protected by near-impenetrable armor. Lena's heart sank as the dreadnoughts appeared on the hologram. "Of course they had reinforcements," she muttered. The tide of battle turned once more, and the human fleet found itself on the defensive. The interceptors were recalled, but many didn't make it back. On Earth, Dr. Evelyn Drake watched the battle unfold from her underground lab. "They've escalated," she said grimly. Commander Marcus Kane nodded. "Then it's time we do the same. Initiate Protocol Black Veil." Dr. Drake hesitated, her fingers hovering over the controls. "If we use it now, there's no turning back." "There's no other choice," Kane replied. The rising storm. As the Xylarn dreadnoughts unleashed their wrath, Lena received a coded message from Earth. Her eyes widened as she read it. "They're deploying it," she whispered. Parker frowned. "Deploying what?" Lena didn't answer. Instead, she turned to her crew. "Brace yourselves. The real battle starts now." In the distance, a faint glow appeared near Earth's orbit. It grew brighter, pulsing with an unnatural energy. The Xylarn ships hesitated, their sensors struggling to make sense of the anomaly. The glow erupted into a blinding light, and a new weapon, humanity's last desperate gamble, was unleashed. The secret weapon. The glow near Earth's orbit was not a weapon in the conventional sense. It wasn't a bomb, nor a missile, nor even a beam of energy. It was something far more dangerous: Project Black Veil. From the underground base beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Evelyn Drake activated the final sequence. In an instant, the source of the glow materialized, a shimmering, amorphous structure that pulsed with life. This was humanity's hidden ace, a hybrid of cutting-edge AI and alien technology salvaged from long-forgotten wrecks scattered across the solar system. It wasn't a weapon of destruction, but of deception. The turning tide. The Xylarn dreadnoughts hesitated as their sensors struggled to make sense of the anomaly. It looked like a fleet, a vast armada of ships dwarfing anything in Earth's inventory. But this fleet was an illusion, a carefully constructed mirage projected by Black Veil. On the Resolute, Captain Lena Grayson watched the effect unfold. The holographic map showed the Xylarn fleet pulling back slightly, their tight formation unraveling as confusion spread through their ranks. "What are we looking at?" Parker asked, staring at the glowing display. "It's not real," Lena said, a slight smile playing on her lips. "But they don't know that." The Xylarn commander, Velrek, was anything but amused. "Impossible," he snarled. "Where did these ships come from?" His officers scrambled for answers, but none of their instruments could penetrate the illusion. Every scan, every probe, every calculation confirmed what their eyes were seeing. A massive, powerful fleet emerging to challenge them. Velrek's pride began to waver. "Prepare the dreadnoughts to engage. If they want to play games, we'll show them why the Xylarn Empire cannot be defied." The human counteroffensive. While the Xylarn focused on the Phantom fleet, the real human ships struck. Moving under the cover of the Black Veil's projections, the fleet launched a coordinated assault. The interceptors returned, this time armed with new payloads, disruption pods capable of scrambling even the Xylarn's advanced systems. On the Resolute, Lena gave the order. "All ships, engage. Hit them fast and hard." The human fleet moved like shadows, darting in and out of the Xylarn formation. With their systems already struggling to process the illusion, the Xylarn were slow to react. One by one, their ships faltered. Engines failed. Shields collapsed. Even the mighty dreadnoughts found themselves vulnerable, their overwhelming firepower rendered useless by the chaos surrounding them. The Xylarn fight back. But the Xylarn were not a species to go down without a fight. Velrek, realizing the deception, ordered his forces to target the source of the anomaly. "Find the projector," he roared. "If we can't destroy it, we'll destroy everything around it." Xylarn ships broke away from the main battle, heading straight for Earth. In the underground base, alarms blared as the enemy approached. Dr. Drake and her team worked frantically, redirecting power to maintain the illusion. "They're onto us," she said, her voice tight. "We need more time." Commander Kane didn't flinch. "You'll get it," he said, turning to a squad of heavily armed soldiers. "Prepare to defend this facility. No matter what, Black Veil cannot fall." A desperate defense. On the ground, Earth's planetary defenses roared to life. Massive railguns and orbital cannons fired at the incoming Xylarn ships, but their advanced shields absorbed most of the damage. In orbit, the human fleet split into two groups. One continued the assault on the Xylarn main force, while the other raced back to protect the planet. Lena's ship led the charge. "We can't let them reach the surface," she said. "Target their engines. Slow them down." The Resolute and its escorts fired relentlessly, chipping away at the Xylarn ships. But for every ship they stopped, another slipped through. The sacrifice. As the Xylarn neared the base, one of their dreadnoughts unleashed a devastating barrage. The ground shook as explosions rocked the facility. Dr. Drake gritted her teeth, ignoring the chaos around her as she continued to operate the Black Veil. But the system was overloaded, and the illusion began to falter. Lena's voice crackled over the comms. "Drake, you need to shut it down. If they pinpoint your location, it's over." "No," Drake replied firmly. "If we shut it down now, they'll destroy the fleet. We need a little more time." At that moment, Commander Marcus Kane made a decision. "Evacuate the non-essential personnel," he ordered. Drake looked up, alarmed. "What are you doing?" Kane didn't answer. Instead, he led his soldiers out of the command room and into the facility's lower levels. Minutes later, the ground defenses intensified. Small, automated drones swarmed the incoming Xylarn, acting as decoys and drawing fire away from the base. But Kane and his team weren't drones. They were human, and they were sacrificing themselves to buy humanity another chance. The final blow. With the Xylarn distracted, Lena's fleet delivered a coordinated strike on the lead dreadnought. A single massive explosion lit up the battlefield as the enemy flagship crumbled. Velric, aboard his damaged ship, watched in stunned silence. For the first time in his career, he felt something he had never known: fear. On the Resolute, Lena issued the final command: drive them out. The remaining Selarn ships, disoriented and leaderless, retreated. Earth's fleet pursued them, ensuring they left the solar system. Victory, at a cost. When the dust settled, humanity had won the day, but at great cost. The Black Veil survived, but the underground base was in ruins. Commander Kane and his team were gone, their sacrifice etched into the history of Earth's defense. As Lena stood on the bridge of the Resolute, she looked out at the stars, knowing this was only the beginning. They underestimated us once, she said quietly. Let's make sure they never do it again. But even as the Selarn retreated, a new question loomed. Who was the shadowy figure behind their plans? Earth's hidden allies. The Selarn retreated, their fleet scattered, their pride bruised. But Captain Lena Grayson knew better than to celebrate. Victory in one battle didn't mean the war was won. On board the Resolute, the air was thick with exhaustion. Crew members slumped in their seats, their faces pale from the relentless strain of battle. Yet amidst the exhaustion, there was a flicker of hope. Status report, Lena said, her voice steady despite the fatigue pulling at her. Lieutenant Parker looked up from his console. Enemy fleet retreating to the outer edges of the solar system. No sign of reinforcements, yet. Good, Lena replied, then turned to the holographic map. But they'll be back, and when they return, they won't make the same mistakes. Her words hung in the air, a sobering reminder that this was far from over. A message from the shadows. As the crew worked to assess their losses, an encrypted signal pinged on Lena's console. It wasn't from Earth, nor from any known human ship. The origin was an uncharted sector of the asteroid belt. Parker frowned as he studied the data. This isn't one of ours, he said. Lena's eyes narrowed. Patch it through. The message crackled to life. The voice was distorted, deep, and metallic. Humans, you have shown resilience, but your survival depends on knowledge you do not yet possess. We must speak. The message ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Who was that? Parker asked. Lena didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stared at the map, her mind racing. Set a course for the signal's origin, she ordered. The secret meeting. The Resolute arrived at the source of the signal, a hollowed-out asteroid cloaked in stealth technology. As the ship approached, a docking bay opened, revealing a sleek alien vessel unlike anything the crew had ever seen. Inside the asteroid, Lena and a small team met their mysterious contact, a group of Selarn defectors. Their leader, a tall figure with silver skin and glowing blue eyes, stepped forward. I am Talion, he said, his voice calm but firm. We were once loyal to the Empire, but we saw the truth. The Selarn seek not just to conquer but to annihilate. Their greed knows no bounds. Lena studied him warily. Why should we trust you? Talion gestured to a data crystal he held. Because we know their secrets, their weaknesses. With our help, you can turn the tide of this war. Allies or traitors? Back on the Resolute, tensions ran high. The Selarn defectors shared critical intel, revealing the Empire's reliance on a massive command ship hidden in deep space. This ship, they explained, controlled the Empire's fleet through advanced quantum communication. Destroying it would cripple their forces. But not everyone trusted the defectors. Lieutenant Parker voiced what many were thinking. What if this is a trap? They could be leading us straight into an ambush. Lena faced her crew, her expression grim. They have as much to lose as we do if the Selarn succeed. For now, we work with them, but we don't let our guard down. A plan forms. Using the defectors' intel, Lena and her officers devised a daring plan. They would strike at the Selarn command ship, using stealth and precision to avoid detection. Talion provided the final piece of the puzzle. a hidden Sularn technology buried on one of Saturn's moons. This device, a cloaking field generator, would allow the Resolute to approach the command ship undetected. But the journey to the moon wouldn't be easy. Xelarn forces patrolled the area, and any sign of human activity would draw their attention. A fragile alliance. As the Resolute set course for Saturn, tensions between the humans and their new allies grew. In the mess hall, a heated argument broke out between a young pilot and one of the Xelarn defectors. "How do we know you're not spying for your empire?" the pilot shouted. The Xelarn defector, calm but visibly hurt, replied, "If I wanted to betray you, I wouldn't be here risking my life." Lena intervened before the argument could escalate further. "We don't have the luxury of mistrust," she said firmly. "If we start turning on each other, the Xelarn have already won." Her words silenced the room, but the unease lingered. The first test. As the Resolute approached Saturn, they encountered a Xelarn patrol. Talion suggested a bold move, using a Xelarn recognition code to bypass detection. "If it works," he said, "they'll think we're one of theirs. If it doesn't." Lena made the call. "Do it." The code was transmitted, and the bridge crew held their breath. Seconds passed like hours. Finally, the patrol ships altered course, ignoring the Resolute entirely. "It worked," Parker whispered, relief washing over him. Lena exhaled slowly. "One battle at a time," she said. The moon's secret. On Saturn's moon, the team located the cloaking field generator. It was buried beneath layers of ice, guarded by automated defenses left behind by the Xelarn. Lena led the mission herself, accompanied by a mix of human soldiers and Xelarn defectors. Inside the icy caverns, they encountered resistance. Defense drones that fired without hesitation. The team fought their way through, combining human ingenuity with Xelarn precision. Finally, they'd reached the generator. As they activated it, the cavern trembled. Alarms blared, signaling the Xelarn nearby. "Move!" Lena shouted as the team raced back to the Resolute, the ground shaking beneath their feet. A narrow escape. Back on the Resolute, the cloaking field activated just as a Xelarn patrol arrived. The human ship vanished from their sensors, leaving the patrol confused and aimless. For now, Earth's fleet was safe, but the journey to the Xelarn command ship was just beginning. As Lena stood on the bridge, she looked at Talion. "This is far from over," she said. "No," Talion agreed. "It's only the beginning." In the distance, the faint glow of the Xelarn command ship loomed, a symbol of both power and the final hurdle in humanity's desperate fight for survival. The final battle. The Xelarn command ship loomed in the distance, a colossus of dark metal bristling with weapons and surrounded by an armada of heavily armed escorts. It wasn't just a ship, it was a fortress, the nerve center of the Empire's vast fleet. On board the Resolute, Captain Lena Grayson stood at the command table, her eyes fixed on the holographic display of the enemy formation. Her crew waited in tense silence, knowing that the outcome of this mission could decide the fate of humanity. "Our target," Lena began, pointing to the pulsating core of the command ship, "is here. If we disable that core, we sever their fleet's ability to coordinate. They'll be disorganized and vulnerable. But this isn't going to be easy." Lieutenant Parker nodded grimly. "Even with the cloaking field, we're outnumbered. If they detect us before we reach the core—" "They won't," Lena said, cutting him off, "because we're not going in alone." An unlikely alliance. The Xelarn defectors had called in reinforcements, a ragtag coalition of other alien species oppressed by the Empire. Their ships were smaller and less advanced, but their pilots were fearless, driven by a shared hatred for the Xelarn. As the fleet assembled, Talion addressed the coalition from the Resolute's war room. "This is not just a fight for Earth," he said, his glowing eyes scanning the crowd. "This is a fight for freedom, for every world that Xelarn have enslaved. Together, we can bring their empire to its knees." The coalition roared in agreement. The approach. The cloaking field enveloped the human and allied fleet as they moved toward the command ship. The field wasn't perfect. It flickered intermittently, and the closer they got to the enemy, the more unstable it became. "Hold formation," Lena ordered, her voice calm but firm. "Stay close to the field's core. If we scatter, we're finished." As they drew nearer, the tension on the bridge was palpable. Every sensor ping, every flicker of the field felt like a death knell. Suddenly, alarms blared. "They'd spotted us," Parker shouted. The Xylarn ships began to converge on their position, their weapons powering up. "Engage Phase 1," Lena barked. The diversion. The Allied fleet split into two groups. One, led by Talion and the Xylarn defectors, launched a full-scale assault on the enemy escorts. Their smaller, faster ships darted around the Xylarn like hornets, drawing their fire and creating chaos. Meanwhile, the Resolute and a handful of other ships slipped through the cracks, heading straight for the command ship. On board the Xylarn flagship, Commander Velrek watched the battle unfold with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "Impossible," he growled. "How do they keep slipping past us?" His officers scrambled for answers, but Velrek wasn't interested in excuses. "Activate the planetary annihilation cannon," he ordered. "If we can't stop them, we'll destroy Earth itself." Inside the fortress, Lena led a strike team onto the command ship, using stealth suits provided by the defectors to evade detection. The corridors of the ship were labyrinthine, lit by a cold, eerie glow. Talion accompanied them, his knowledge of the ship's layout proving invaluable. "The core is heavily guarded," he warned. "Once we breach this section, they'll know we're here." "We'll worry about that when it happens," Lena replied. As they moved deeper into the ship, the team encountered resistance, Xylarn soldiers armed with energy weapons. The firefights were brutal and swift, with the humans and defectors using guerrilla tactics to outmaneuver their opponents. The core. The team finally reached the command core, a massive glowing sphere suspended in the center of the room, surrounded by intricate machinery. Talion stepped forward, his hands glowing faintly as he interfaced with the core. "I can overload it," he said, "but I'll need time." "Time is something we don't have," Lena replied, turning to her team. "Hold the line. Don't let anyone through." The room became a battlefield as waves of Xylarn soldiers stormed in. Lena and her team fought desperately, their weapons blazing. Talion worked furiously, his glowing hands moving in complex patterns as he manipulated the core's systems. "Almost there," he said, sweat beading on his silver skin. The final push. Outside, the Allied fleet was struggling. The Xylarn's annihilation cannon began to charge, its ominous glow visible even from Earth. On the Resolute, Parker watched in horror as the weapon prepared to fire. "We need to buy them more time," he said. The Resolute charged forward, targeting the cannon with everything it had. Other Allied ships followed suit, their combined firepower creating a spectacular display of destruction. Victory at a cost. Inside the command core, Talion shouted, "It's done." The core pulsed violently, and alarms blared throughout the ship. The team raced back to their shuttle as the command ship began to implode. Back in space, the Xylarn fleet fell into disarray as their centralized control system collapsed. Ships collided, weapons misfired, and the annihilation cannon powered down, its glow fading into darkness. The Allied fleet cheered as the command ship erupted in a blinding explosion, signaling the end of the Xylarn's dominance. Aftermath. The battle was won, but at great cost. Many Allied ships were lost, and the Resolute limped back to Earth, its hull battered and scorched. In the war room, Lena stood with Talion, her expression both triumphant and somber. "We did it," she said. Talion nodded. "This was just one battle. The Xylarn Empire will seek revenge." Lena's gaze hardened. "Then we'll be ready." But as she turned away, a new message crackled through the comms, a warning from deep space. "They are coming," the voice said, "and they are far worse than the Xylarn." The room fell silent as the weight of the words settled. The war wasn't over, it was just beginning. Victory and aftermath. The debris of the Xilarn command ship drifted silently in space, a monument to humanity's resilience and the courage of those who had fought and fallen. On the Resolute, the crew celebrated, but their cheers were muted by exhaustion and the lingering weight of their losses. Captain Lena Grayson stood on the bridge, staring out at the void. Her hands rested on the command table, her knuckles white from the tension that hadn't yet released. The Xilarn fleet was broken, their stranglehold on Earth shattered, but something about the battle felt unfinished. Lieutenant Parker approached, his voice cautious. "Captain, incoming transmission." "It's from Talion." Lena nodded, signaling for it to be patched through. A grim revelation. Talion's image flickered onto the main display, his silver skin dimmed, and his glowing eyes reflecting fatigue. "The Xilarn Empire has suffered a devastating blow," he began, "but their leadership remains intact. They will rebuild. And when they do, they will come for you with a fury unlike anything you faced." Lena crossed her arms, her gaze steady. "We'll be ready." Talion hesitated, then continued. "There's something else. The message you received, the warning about something worse, wasn't Xilarn. We've intercepted similar signals on other worlds. They speak of a force older than the Empire, one that consumes everything in its path." Parker's eyes widened. "Older than the Xilarn? What could it be?" Talion's expression darkened. "We don't know, but it calls itself the Harbinger." Rebuilding and reflection. Back on Earth, the planet was alive with activity. The victory had ignited a sense of unity and purpose that hadn't been seen in centuries. Factories worked around the clock to repair damaged ships and build new ones. Recruitment centers overflowed with volunteers eager to defend their world. In the underground base, Dr. Evelyn Drake reviewed the remnants of the Black Veil Project. The cloaking field generator had burned out during the battle, leaving behind a complex web of fused circuits and alien fragments. "Can we rebuild it?" Commander Marcus Kane asked, his voice a mix of hope and exhaustion. Drake shook her head. "Not as it was, but we can learn from it. We'll be stronger next time." A world transformed. The world's leaders convened for a historic summit, broadcast to every corner of the planet. For the first time, humanity wasn't divided by borders or politics, but united under a single purpose: survival. Lena stood before the assembly, her voice resolute. "This war has shown us what we're capable of when we stand together. But it has also shown us that we cannot remain isolated. The universe is larger and more dangerous than we ever imagined. We must prepare for what's coming, not just as Earthlings, but as a species ready to take its place among the stars." The room erupted in applause, but Lena felt the weight of the unspoken truth. Their greatest challenges were yet to come. A new mission. Weeks later, the Resolute, now repaired and upgraded, prepared to embark on a new mission. Lena's orders were clear: seek out allies, gather intelligence, and uncover the truth about the Harbinger. The crew was a mix of veterans and new recruits, their faces a blend of determination and uncertainty. Talion and a small group of defectors had joined them, offering their expertise and a bridge to other alien factions. As the ship powered up, Lena addressed her crew. "We've faced impossible odds before, and we've prevailed. This time, the stakes are even higher. The Xilarn underestimated us. Whatever's coming next will learn the same lesson." Her words echoed through the ship, igniting a spark of confidence in every heart. The Harbinger appears. Far beyond the edges of known space, a silent force stirred. Massive, organic ships pulsed with an eerie bioluminescent glow. They moved as one, their collective intelligence vast and unfathomable. In the center of this fleet, a towering structure rose, a living spire that seemed to hum with dark energy. At its apex, a single, unblinking eye-like aperture opened, gazing toward the distant stars. Inside, a shadowy figure stood before a glowing console, its voice resonating like the echo of a dying star. that Silarn have failed. Now the cycle begins again. Let the harbinger awaken. The spire pulsed, sending a wave of energy rippling through the fleet. The ships turned, their course set for a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. A new dawn. On board the Resolute, Lena stood at the observation deck, watching Earth fade into the distance. She knew this journey would take them into the unknown, but she also knew they carried the hope of humanity with them. Parker joined her, his expression thoughtful. "Do you think we'll ever see home again?" he asked. Lena's gaze didn't waver. "We'll see it, and we'll make sure it's still there when we return." As the Resolute disappeared into the vastness of space, a single beacon flickered on its hull, broadcasting humanity's defiance to the stars. "We are here. We will fight. We will survive."